You know those fancy San Francisco steakhouses? The ones where the only sound louder than the clinking of heavy silverware is the quiet calculation of how much everyone at the table is worth? That's where I was. Epicurean Heights, head of a mahogany table for 8. My custom-tailored suit felt like armor, but it did nothing to shield me from the sheer, suffocating weight of my family's expectations. I watched the waiter pour a vintage Napa Cabernet, a bottle that would easily tack $1,000 onto my inevitable tab, and felt the familiar, bitter knot tighten in my stomach. My father, Victor Sterling, swirled his wine with the studied air of a man who still believed he was God's gift to Marin County real estate, even though his last development deal tanked 5 years ago. He's 62 now, all silver-templed charm and Brooks Brothers suits, utterly unbothered by the fact that he hasn't generated income since the iPhone 7 was new. "How's the market treating you, Alara?" he asked, not looking at me. It wasn't a question about the tech sector. It was a coded inquiry about the status of his next monthly infusion. I'm 31, a product manager at a fast-growing tech startup, and I've been paying his mortgage since I was 26. "It's fine," I replied, the word clipped. I didn't elaborate. There was no point. Beside him sat my mother, Genevieve, 60 years old and perfectly preserved, thanks to disciplined Pilates and whatever discreet procedure her favorite plastic surgeon offered last quarter. Her diamond tennis bracelet flashed under the chandelier as she reached for her water. "Ilara, darling," she cooed, her voice sugary sweet, her eyes sharp and assessing. "Did I mention Daphne and Grant finally locked down their venue?" Ah, there it was, the real reason for the mandatory dinner. Daphne, my 27-year-old sister, beamed from across the table. Her engagement ring, a blinding 3-carat monstrosity, reflected the light. Daphne's current goal in life is to be a full-time lifestyle influencer, and her success, in the Sterling family ledger, is measured entirely by the pedigree of her fiancé, Grant Harrington, whose blandness is only exceeded by his inherited wealth. It's this unbelievable 15th century villa in the south of France. Vineyard views, Michelin star catering, literally everything is perfect. Grant, who looked like a walking stock photo of a junior hedge fund manager, nodded dutifully. He has the confident, empty stare of someone who has never had to work for anything more complex than a reservation. My brother, Owen, 34, a museum curator, and his wife, Maya, exchanged a barely perceptible glance. Owen, the family's resident quiet rebel, escaped the suffocating financial pressure by dedicating himself to the arts. Maya squeezed his hand under the table, her silent support a small comfort in the toxic atmosphere. My Aunt Cecilia sipped her martini, observing the spectacle with the practiced detachment of a seasoned theater critic. "The chateau is simply divine," Genevieve continued, steering the conversation with the precision of a high-speed drone. "They just need the $18,000 deposit to secure the date. The resort won't hold it past next week." She paused, her smile never faltering, waiting for me to pull out my corporate card. "I'll text you the wire info tonight, sweetie." The table went silent, all 8 pairs of eyes fixed on me. I took a slow sip of water, feeling the weight of their combined financial futures pressing down on my chest. I had been planning this moment, rehearsing this line in the privacy of my therapist's office for months. "Actually," I said, my voice steady, professional, like I was addressing a board meeting, "I can't swing $18,000 right now. I'm finally trying to build my own legitimate emergency fund." The silence that followed was absolute, thick enough to choke on. Grant suddenly found the texture of his napkin utterly fascinating. Owen's eyebrows shot up. Even the waiter, approaching with fresh bread, discreetly backed away. Victor shattered the silence with a short, barking laugh, the kind that held more contempt than humor. "Savings?" he staffed, loud enough for half the restaurant to hear. "Your job is to earn Alara, not hoard." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to that deep, dangerous register that always used to paralyze me. "How does it feel to be the only useless ATM in the room?" The table, minus Owen and Maya, erupted in hollow, easy chuckles, treating his cruelty like a witty bon mot. I froze.
the sound hitting me like a physical blow. Suddenly, I wasn't a successful 31-year-old product manager. I was 10 again, sitting at the dining table while my mother dealt out our family roles like poker cards. Owen is the artist, she'd said, ruffling his hair. Daphne is the face, the beauty, kissing my sister's cheek. Then turning to me, but you, Alara, you're the smart one. You are our retirement plan. The memory blurred, jumping ahead. Now I was 26, drowning in student loans and a junior analyst salary. My phone rang. It was Genevieve. Her voice weak, desperate. Alara, we're going to lose the house. The stress will kill me. My life is in your hands. That night, I agreed to cover the mortgage. That was 5 years ago. The laughter faded. The memory dissolved. But something inside me, worn thin by 5 years of servitude and finally sharpened by 3 months of intensive therapy, finally snapped. I smiled. It wasn't the usual compliant smile. It was cold, hard, and utterly devoid of warmth. You're right, Dad, I said, placing my fork down with deliberate care. A useless ATM should be out of service. The chuckles stopped instantly. Genevieve's face tightened with alarm. Alara, don't be dramatic. You're embarrassing us. I've never been more serious. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving across the screen with calm, surgical precision. The family watched, frozen in horror. Let's see. First, I'm canceling the $4,500 mortgage payment scheduled for Monday. Tap. Done. Next, I'm blocking both of your numbers from my Zelle and Venmo accounts. Tap. Done. Genevieve's face drained of color. Victor's flushed a dangerous, violent red. I dropped my corporate Amex onto the table. This covers my meal and 1 glass of wine. The rest of you are on your own. Victor shot to his feet, knocking his napkin to the floor. You ungrateful brat, after everything we've done for you. I stood up too, suddenly feeling 6 feet tall. What have you done? My voice didn't shake. I paid for my own Stanford tuition. I've been paying your mortgage. I've subsidized your image for half a decade. I looked at each stunned face. I'm done. I walked out, the silence in the restaurant complete, broken only by the soft, confident click of my heels against the marble floor. Outside, the cool San Francisco night air hit me like a rush of pure freedom. For the first time in 5 years, I could breathe deeply. The Uber lurched through downtown traffic as my phone vibrated incessantly in my hand. The screen flashed like a broken strobe light. Genevieve, you'll kill me. Is that what you want? Call me now. Victor, you will fix this. This childish tantrum stops today. Daphne, Alara, you've ruined everything. The venue won't hold without the deposit. My hands were trembling, a hot, nauseous feeling spreading through me. I'd never defied dumb like this. Not once in 31 years. The messages blurred, but I blinked back the threatening tears. I wouldn't reply. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Then a text from an unexpected source. Owen. Are you okay? That was incredible. I stared at the 6 words. My quiet brother, the museum curator, had never sided with me, always choosing invisibility over conflict. In that simple message was the first real, unconditional support I'd ever felt from my immediate family. A small, warm spark ignited in my chest, a fragile thing that was nonetheless stronger than the panic choking me. The next morning, I called in sick. I dressed in comfortable leggings and a cashmere sweater, avoiding the tailored blazer that Victor always insisted made me look the part of family provider. I headed straight for my financial advisor's office. Mark Sterling had managed my portfolio since my first bonus. He'd never questioned the steady, massive outflow of funds to accounts with the Sterling name. Now his expression shifted from professional welcome to profound concern. Alara, what's going on? Your message said it was urgent. I need a complete audit, Mark, I said, my voice eerily calm. Every dollar that's left my accounts in the last 5 years, I need to see the damage.
2 hours later, we had the number. Mark turned his screen toward me, a spreadsheet glowing with transaction after transaction, color-coded by recipient.
The total at the bottom was a malignant, undeniable figure, $350,000, not counting the smaller gifts, the expensive dinners, or the loans I'd long accepted I'd never see again. $350,000, I whispered, the number scraping my throat raw. The sick feeling returned, but this time it was accompanied by a strange, cold sense of validation. I wasn't crazy. The creeping unease I'd felt for years wasn't paranoia, it was my survival instinct screaming. But Mark wasn't finished. He leaned forward, his professional detachment finally cracking. The number is bad, Alara, but this is far worse. He clicked to a new tab and turned the screen back toward me. I saw 3 active credit cards and a large personal loan I had never authorized, all opened 2 years ago and all mailed to the Sterling family's 5-bedroom estate in Marin County. The balance on each hovered near its limit. The total fraudulent debt, taken out in my name using my social security number, was $60,000. The room tilted. My vision swam. My fingernails dug hard into my palms. They committed identity theft? I asked, the words barely a breath. Mark's voice was gentle but firm. This isn't just family taking advantage, Alara. This is criminal fraud. The realization crashed over me in a cold wave. My family hadn't just exploited me. They had committed a felony. The panic I'd felt leaving the restaurant was completely gone now, replaced by a crystalline, hard clarity. I wasn't dealing with parents anymore. I was dealing with criminals. I thought of my therapist, Dr. Lillian Fisher, the one who had spent 3 months helping me dismantle the lifetime of guilt and manipulation. I pulled out my phone and dialed her office. Dr. Fisher, I need a referral for a financial litigation lawyer, the one who uses scorched earth tactics. She didn't hesitate, recognizing the shift in my voice from victim to warrior. She gave me the number for Anya Sharma, who had a reputation for destroying abusers in court. I hung up and immediately secured an appointment for the following morning. The rest of the day was spent in meticulous, cold action. I sat in my San Francisco apartment, methodically calling credit bureaus and fraud departments. With each call, each police report filed, each fraudulent account frozen, I felt a surge of strength, a terrifying certainty. My phone continued vibrating itself to death, but the tone of the messages was changing rapidly. The initial fury from Victor and Genevieve gave way to bewildered confusion, then to pure, unadulterated panic. Victor, what have you done? The account was just frozen. The Amex was declined. Genevieve, the bank called about the mortgage. You'll kill me. Call me now. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. For the first time in my 31 years, I wasn't running to solve their problems. I was holding my position, fortified by the knowledge of the $60,000 fraud. This was no longer just about escape. This was a siege. Monday came and went, taking the mortgage payment deadline with it. My phone buzzed incessantly, flashing my parents' names until I finally silenced it completely. The momentary quiet lasted exactly 12 minutes before they switched tactics to weaponized voicemail. I played the first one while making coffee, Genevieve's voice wavering with practiced fragility. Alora, please. The bank is calling. They're threatening foreclosure notices. Please call me back. Delete. An hour later, the tone shifted. After all the sacrifices I made for you, carrying you for 9 months, giving up my career, choosing your schools, this is how you repay that? Delete. By afternoon, the messages turned dark and abusive. You are tearing this family apart. Your father can't sleep, I can't eat. Is that what you want? To destroy us? I set my phone down, surprised by my own profound lack of reaction. In the past, these messages would have sent me spiraling into panic and guilt. Now, they sounded exactly like what they were, the desperate, flailing attempts of people who had lost control of their main financial resource. Dr. Fisher called this progress. I called it clarity. The buzzer to my secure apartment building sounded at 7:14 p.m. I checked the security feed, expecting a delivery. Instead, I saw Victor's face, contorted with a primal rage, jabbing the button repeatedly. I watched, transfixed, as my father screamed at my doorman, Marcus, his silver hair disheveled, his suit jacket rumpled. "I need to see my daughter. Now. This is a family emergency." Marcus, a former Marine, remained utterly impassive. "Sir, if Miss Sterling wanted to see you, she would have authorized your entry." "Do you know who I am?" Victor's face flushed darker.
I'm paying for this building. My money bought this place. I watched Marcus's expression shift from polite tolerance to cold authority. Sir, I need you to leave the premises immediately, or I will call the police. Victor took a single aggressive step toward the camera. You listen to me, you little... That's enough, Marcus said, reaching for the lobby phone. I'm calling the police now. The threat of law enforcement instantly deflated Victor. His shoulders sagged, his fury draining away, replaced by the crushing realization that he was making a scene. He was Victor Sterling, respected, if currently bankrupt, former real estate developer, not some common criminal. Fine, he muttered, just tell her I was here. He left, but 20 minutes later, a folded piece of paper slid under my door. I picked it up, recognizing my father's aggressive, almost violent handwriting, the pen having nearly torn through the paper. You owe us. Fix this. Just 4 words. Not an expression of love or regret, but a demand, underlined 3 times, the entitlement radiating from the page like toxic heat. I placed it carefully in the folder labeled Evidence. My phone chimed with a new text. Daphne, white influencer sister, was perfectly cued. Ilara, Mom is having heart palpitations. She's so worried the doctor says it's stress-induced. Can you please just pay it? I'm so scared for her health. The familiar knot formed in my stomach, Daphne's special technique, the guilt bomb delivered through the perfect polished veneer of concern. 3 months ago, this message would have sent me scrambling. Instead, I remembered the $60,000 in fraudulent debt and felt nothing but cold, clinical disgust. I texted back a single word. No. Then I blocked her number too. Wednesday morning, I went to see Dr. Fisher. Doctor, I began, sitting in her worn armchair, they stole from me. They manipulated me, and now they're trying to use the same old tactics to force me back in line. I expected to cry. I always cried in that room, but today there were no tears, just a cold, focused anger. Dr. Fisher nodded. What's different this time? I see it now. All of it. The patterns, the manipulation, the lies. She smiled, not with happiness, but with recognition. You weren't a victim, Ilara. You were a survivor of a long-term emotional siege. Now you're a strategist. Strategist. The word felt like armor plating over my heart. So what does a strategist do next? I asked. She prepares her battlefield, Dr. Fisher replied. Thursday morning, I met my new lawyer, Anya Sharma. Her office was sterile, utilitarian, and absolutely packed with files, the lair of a hunter. Her handshake was firm, her gaze direct. Let me understand, she said, reviewing the notes from Mark, my financial advisor. Your parents have been systematically draining your accounts for 5 years, to the tune of $350,000. And now we've discovered $60,000 in fraudulent debt taken out in your name. She removed her glasses, polishing them slowly. Miss Sterling, I've been practicing law for 20 years. I've seen a lot of financial abuse. This, she said, putting the glasses back on, her eyes magnified and serious, this is our leverage. This is everything. For the next week, I became a document archaeologist. I dug through 5 years of records. I got sworn affidavits from Mark, documenting the steady, devastating drain. I pulled every bank statement, highlighting the transfers, $4,500 here, $18,000 there, death by 1,000 financial cuts. I saved every abusive voicemail and printed every manipulative text. I even included the screenshot of Victor threatening Marcus in the lobby. Each piece of evidence was a layer of guilt stripped away. By the following Wednesday, I had a file 3 inches thick, documenting 5 years of systematic financial and emotional abuse, culminating in a felony. I was ready. I sat in Anya Sharma's office, my hands steady, and dialed my parents' number.
The call was on speakerphone and being recorded, with Anya sitting silently across from me. Genevieve answered on the first ring. Ilara? Oh, thank God. We knew you'd come to your senses. Mom, Dad, I've reviewed my finances. I'm willing to have one meeting to discuss this. The relief in Genevieve's voice was palpable. Oh, thank goodness, Ilara. Your father found a lovely Italian restaurant for us to meet at. It won't be at a restaurant.
It will be at my lawyer's office, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Be there. I hung up before she could formulate a response. The sudden void of silence was perfect. Anya nodded. Just once. Well done. The power has shifted. They know they've lost control. The next morning, Anya and I sat in a sterile conference room. My case file sat between us, neatly organized, ready for execution. At precisely 10 a.m., Anya's assistant opened the door. Victor and Genevieve walked in, radiating their usual air of annoyed, entitled superiority. Genevieve wore her pearl necklace, her armor for difficult social situations. Victor's suit was freshly pressed, his posture rigid with indignation. They sat across from us, clearly expecting to browbeat their daughter back into submission. They had no idea they were walking into their own execution. All right, Ilara, Victor began, his voice carrying that familiar, condescending tone of authority. This little tantrum has gone on long enough. We're willing to accept your apology and— Mr. and Mrs. Sterling, Anya interrupted, her voice cool and professional, cutting Victor off mid-sentence. This is not a negotiation. We're here to inform you of your options. She slid a file across the table. This is a copy of a police report we have already filed with the SFPD for identity theft. Genevieve's hand froze halfway to her designer purse. It details $60,000 in fraudulent credit cards and loans opened in your daughter's name. Anya continued, relentless. We have the statements, the applications, and the IP logs. I watched their faces transform. Genevieve's skin turned the color of chalk, her fingers clutching her purse like a life preserver. Victor's complexion flushed a dangerous shade of purple that climbed from his collar to his hairline. How dare you? Victor slammed his fist against the table, making the water glasses jump. This is a family matter. You'd send your own parents to jail over a misunderstanding? Genevieve's eyes filled with tears, not the elegant, dignified kind she used in public, but the messy, desperate kind that smeared her makeup. Ilara, how could you? After all the sacrifices we made, we just needed a little help. You have so much. It was your obligation. There it was, the guilt bomb, the emotional nuclear option my therapist had prepared me for, the weapon they had deployed countless times over the years. I sat perfectly still, watching the performance, searching for the familiar, crushing ache of guilt in my chest, and found nothing. Not anger, not hurt, just a vast, cool emptiness where the responsibility used to live. I looked at Anya and gave a small nod. Anya continued as if they hadn't spoken, her voice as calm as if discussing the weather. As I said, the report is filed. This is a non-negotiable step required by the credit bureaus to clear Ilara's name. The district attorney is very interested. Victor's face twisted with pure, poisonous rage, the look that once sent me scrambling to appease him. The look that Victor gave me, that pure, poisonous rage, was the same expression that had once sent me scrambling to appease him, instantly dissolving any boundary I dared to set. This time, however, the look just washed over me. I was armed with a lawyer and the truth. Anya Sharma didn't even flinch. However, Anya said, her voice cutting through the tense silence, Ilara has spoken with the district attorney. She will advocate for probation instead of jail time. Genevieve looked up, a desperate, pathetic flicker of hope across her tear-stained face. On one condition, Anya continued, sliding a second document across the sterile table. You agree to full immediate restitution of the $60,000 fraudulent debt. Victor barked a laugh, sharp and utterly humorless.
We don't have $60,000. You know that. That's why we were so tight. Which is exactly why, Anya said, completely unmoved, sliding a third set of documents forward. You will be putting your 5-bedroom home in Marin County on the market. Today. The statement hung in the air, heavy and final. The sale will be handled by an escrow company we've selected to ensure the $60,000 is paid directly to the creditors, clearing Ilara's name. The silence that followed was absolute. I watched the truth settle over them, not as a threat, but as an inescapable reality. They were trapped. It was either sign the papers or face a felony conviction for identity theft. Their family matter had just been legally executed. Victor's hands, the same hands that had signed those fraudulent loan applications, began to tremble violently. Genevieve's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of her like air from a punctured balloon, revealing the brittle, aging woman beneath the designer clothes. "You can't be serious," Victor said, the bluster finally gone. His voice sounded suddenly hollow and old. "Your daughter is deadly serious," Anya replied, pressing the point home. "Sign the papers or the DA moves forward with charges. It's your choice." Genevieve finally looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in 5 years, not as the retirement plan, not as the ATM, but as a person with boundaries she had criminally violated. "How will we live?" she whispered. The words were designed to pierce, to activate the deep-seated caretaker programming I had spent months trying to erase. They should have stung, should have brought back the crushing weight of responsibility that had been my constant companion. But I thought of the $350,000 I had already given them. I thought of the calculated lies, the endless manipulation, and the cold criminal identity theft. "That," I said, my voice soft but steady, "is not my problem anymore." Victor's jaw worked, his pride finally losing the battle against self-preservation. Slowly, reluctantly, he reached for the pen Anya offered. "This isn't over," he muttered as his signature scratched across the paper, but we both knew it was. He was no longer the imposing real estate magnate. He was just a broken man facing consequences he never believed applied to him. The meeting ended quickly. There were no tearful goodbyes, no promises of future reconciliation, just the cold efficiency of paperwork being processed and boundaries being irrevocably erected. Outside the office, standing on the sidewalk in the bright San Francisco morning, I took a breath that felt different from any I'd taken in 5 years. It was lighter, cleaner, completely unburdened. My phone buzzed in my purse, a text from Owen. How did it go? I looked at the screen for a moment, then typed, "It's done. I'm free." The Sterling's pristine white 5-bedroom colonial in Marin County hit the market on a Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday, the listing had dozens of saves and showing requests. By Thursday morning, Victor and Genevieve's friends were texting them. "Downsizing?" asked the country club president's wife. "Retirement property in Palm Springs?" suggested Genevieve's bridge partner. My mother, for the first time in her 60 years, had nothing to say. The shame of it silenced her more effectively than any argument or logic ever could. I watched the fallout from a distance, not with joy, but with a cold, steady clarity. The weight I'd carried for 5 years had finally lifted. My shoulders straightened a little more each day. My breathing deepened. My therapist called it reclaiming my power. I called it survival. Owen called me on Friday night, his voice hushed. "It's like watching a meteor hit," he said, calling from his car just to be safe. "Mom hasn't left her bedroom in 3 days. Dad just sits in his study drinking scotch, staring at the packing boxes." "Are they asking you for money yet?" I asked, running my finger along the edge of my kitchen counter. The pause on the line told me everything. "They tried," he finally admitted. I said no. I smiled, a genuine, easy smile. Owen and Maya, who had always been the quiet ones, were finally stepping out of the shadow. Later that night, Maya slept over on my couch, exhausted from a stressful week, and I stood at my window watching the city lights. I thought about how parents are supposed to protect their children, not use them as collateral. 2 weeks later, I received a crisp, professional email from the escrow company. The sale of the Sterling estate was complete. The $60,000 in fraudulent debt had been paid in full, and my credit score had already jumped 47 points. Anya called to confirm the details. Victor and Genevieve had been forced to rent a small 2-bedroom apartment in a building far from their old circle. No doorman, no prestigious address, and no elevator. The remaining money from the sale, after the mortgage payoff and my restitution, barely covered their security deposit. They didn't even look at me when they signed the final papers. Not once. I told Dr. Fisher later that week. "How did that make you feel?" she asked gently. "Nothing," I replied. I felt nothing at all.
3 months passed. Daphne, whose dream wedding was canceled, moved away from the Bay Area for a fresh start in New York, trading her influencer aspirations for a part-time job. Owen and Maya had me over for dinner twice a month. I started cooking more complex meals, something I never had the time or energy for before. I slept better than I had since college. I started dating again. Not seriously, but putting myself out there. I breathed freely. Then, on a Tuesday evening as I was reviewing quarterly projections, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something compelled me to answer. "Alara," Victor's voice. It was smaller, older, the booming confidence completely gone. It's your dad." I said nothing, letting the silence stretch. "We're having trouble with the deposit on the new apartment," he said, a noticeable tremor in his voice. I just thought, maybe 5 years ago, those pathetic, halting words would have sent me into a blind panic, scrambling to transfer whatever sum was needed to maintain the precarious peace and keep their world intact. "That is not my problem," I said, my voice steady, betraying no emotion. A long, agonizing pause stretched across the line. I could hear him breathing, defeated. "Alara, please." I ended the call without another word. I felt no guilt, no lingering obligation, just a quiet, certain freedom. I blocked the number immediately and turned back to my laptop. The spreadsheet open on the screen had a new title: Condo Down Payments. I was browsing 2-bedroom units with panoramic views of the city. The useless daughter had become the only one who truly escaped, and now she was thriving. The doorbell rang again at 8:15 p.m. I opened the door to find Daphne standing there, clutching a brown paper bag. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of her designer armor. Her tailored clothes were replaced by simple jeans and a practical sweater. The perfect influencer blowout was gone, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Ilara," she said, her voice barely audible over the party noise. I'm in therapy. I'm working at a coffee shop downtown. I am so sorry. For everything." She held out the paper bag. Inside was a bottle of wine, a modest $15 according to the price tag she forgot to remove. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. A $15 bottle instead of a demanded $18,000 deposit. The old Alara, the caretaker, the fixer, the retirement plan, would have rushed to comfort her, to assure her it was all okay, erasing Daphne's discomfort at the expense of my own hard-won peace. Instead, I studied my sister's face, seeing not my mother's pawn, but Daphne herself, humbled, human, and genuinely remorseful. "Thank you for coming, Daphne," I said simply, stepping aside to let her in. It wasn't absolution, and it certainly wasn't instant forgiveness. It was a door, barely open, but opened entirely on my terms. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, an email from Genevieve. I deleted it without reading. My parents were not, and would never be, invited into this life. Later, when the noise inside grew too loud, I stepped onto the balcony.
The city lights shimmered against the darkening sky. The vast park below was a living testament to permanence and growth. Behind me, glasses clinked, and Owen told a story that made everyone howl with laughter. Daphne sat quietly in a corner, talking earnestly with Maya. I took a sip of my wine and felt the cool air on my face. For 29 years, I lived as someone's investment, someone's safety net, someone's ATM. Standing here, watching the lights trace the paths of a world I now fully belong to, I was none of those things. I was just Ilara, and I was finally, profoundly free. 18 months of distance had given me the perspective I needed. The financial freedom was great. It bought this view, these floors, the quiet confidence in my bank balance. But the true reward was the emotional detachment. I no longer felt the invisible chain around my ankle. The guilt trip mechanism was finally, permanently broken. When Victor called those months ago, small and desperate, I ended the call out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. That moment marked the true end of the old Alara, the woman who prioritized their image over her own survival. The realization that they were just two people facing the logical consequences of their poor choices, not two godlike beings who required my sacrifice, was the final piece of the puzzle. I had been their scaffolding, their foundation, and when I removed myself, the whole shaky structure collapsed exactly as it should have. The financial ruin was their fault. The emotional burden was no longer mine. Looking at Daphne now, talking with Maya, I knew my sister was on her own long journey toward genuine independence, away from the toxic narrative of being the face of the family. Her $15 bottle of wine was a symbol of real growth, a small effort that meant more than any past grand gesture made with my money. She was starting to pay her own dues, both literally and figuratively. Owen and Maya, my quiet allies, were laughing, their happiness unaffected by the drama of the past. Their support, their simple text message saying, "Are you okay?" had been the first crack in the wall of my isolation. They were my true family now, the family of choice. As the party wound down and I said goodbye to Mark and Dr. Fisher, I felt a deep, bone-weary satisfaction that had nothing to do with revenge and everything to do with survival. I had navigated the storm, sued my parents, restored my credit, and built a beautiful life from the ashes of their abuse. My phone remained silent, the final confirmation of my peace. I stepped onto the balcony one last time, the city sparkling below, a world waiting for me to explore, untethered and unbroken. I was Ilara Sterling, product manager, homeowner, and, most importantly, a free woman. I raised my wine glass to the city, a silent toast to the high cost of my education and the sweet taste of independence. The future was unwritten, and, for the first time, only I held the pen.